I'm recording that Tanvir can't.
Maybe, and I'm recording it as well. Not sure. I'm recording it as well. So
আচ্ছা তাহলে আয়শা মানে you can let me record it
yeah.
তোমার যে প্যারা হয়েছে
Samya Ashe, Yamin Ashe, Yamin. I don't know if you can hear me. Raghiv is like audio is good. So Raghiv is Raghiv is one of my oldest students. This guy has been with me for the last 12 years. Oh no, not 12 years. What am I? Who am I kidding? 9 years, I think. Right? Because he was the first batch of students that I taught in Maple মানে Maple Leaf ছিল আমাদের বাসার উপরে ছাদে একটা room ছিল. I used to teach these kids back in the day. So they're the oldest. And the oldest student in BRAC for me, I think, is Aisha. Aisha and Co, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's who we are. So settle in, guys. Take up a chair, kick your shoes off, get a cup of coffee because it's going to take a while, perhaps before we start and before I start my part of the conversation as well. So we can just have a normal adda. Take it. So that's great. I think if we can sort of have an average of around 15 to 20 people, that would be good. Not expecting many people, honestly, because we will be having a lot of people in the Zoom meeting itself. You know what? You know what's funny, Aisha? So there was this guy, not related to our department or New York, that was asking whether they will get certificates for this. Which is, I didn't respond to them yet. After it finishes, I'm gonna be like, yes, there was a certificate. You know, because আমার মনে হয় কি honestly বাংলাদেশে বেশিরভাগ মানুষ join করে for these things just to get certificates, and it's not
Yeah,
really
definitely.
yeah, it's not a good thing because it, whatever seminars you join should be a part of your own and understanding and your own knowledge, right? So there's that. um I think Philippe has joined us. Hi, Philippe. Nice to meet you,
Hello.
sir. It's really, we're just testing things out, sort of seeing if there's any technical errors or glitches. Sir, can you hear me? Do you think you can say
Yes, yes,
something?
yes, I can hear you.
Okay, yeah. We're just testing. We want to wait for like maybe 10-15 minutes for people to drop by. There's already 15 people watching us from the live event, and there's already 8 people, so 24, 25. So that I think that's good. So we were expecting 50, 60 maybe by the end of 10 minutes time. So
Okay.
yeah. Um, Let me see. Let me check my cell phone to see if anyone has commented. Yeah. Aisha, Acha.
Yes, yes.
Acha, so I think what we should do is make it strictly so that whatever we say, it's entirely in English. And at
Yeah,
the same time,
definitely.
and also when we have a discussion, we should encourage the people, the participants, to actually talk in English as well,
Absolutely.
because I think that if Bard College does make use of this video, we don't need to go out of our way to put these subtitles, So I think would be good. I think it's a great, fantastic. So it's a waiting game so far. Momita is here. Momita is one of my favorite colleagues. We share like a common office space together. So it's good to have you. It's been a while since I've actually seen her. And with the things that's happening, with the lockdown, I think there's a lot of uh, rumors, especially Bolbona. I would rather say that a lot of people are expecting for the lockdowns to be extended. So it's not going to be just a week. It's going to probably be half of the Ramjan Mash, which
Oh, yes.
so yeah. So sir, so we are kind of we don't know whether BRAC will actually open in summer. I think the chances are slowly, possibly decreasing.
That's right. That's right. We don't know, and that's right. Chances are decreasing.
Chances are decreasing, sir. Yeah. So I
Yes.
think I'm not going to see you personally before fall, I think.
I have no idea.
Yeah. And some people, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I think, Momita is actually, Nazrina is actually telling you hi. You can't see her comments because it's on Facebook, but Momita has said, hello, Philip, this is Nazrina, by the way.
Uh-huh.
So she's there. Sheikh Toyeba, this girl, the student from BRACU is asking, one day other people turn their videos on. No, I think it's fine as long as the speakers have their videos on. I think it'll be better. There will be more focus on the screen. If
Yeah.
too many people turn it on, I think it's going to be a mess. So yeah. Tanvir is asking me where ATM sir is. Tanvir, do you have his number or should I give him a call? I think you should call. Yeah. Unfortunately, I can't call because my phone is connected to Facebook. So, Tanvir, can you make that call, please, if you don't mind?
Sure.
Yeah. Thank you. Number. Okay. Number, huh? Well, that's a problem. Wait.
Yeah, I found the number.
You found the number? Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you. Oh yeah, that's a problem. My entire thing shut off because I looked for the number. Okay. Wow, we have 36 people currently watching our seminar. That's good. We are expecting 50 and above, so we are waiting, guys. So for everyone that is here, welcome. Thank you guys for joining. That's Philip sir. That's actually a beautiful background. I think you should keep that. It looks really great. And unfortunately, sir, I cannot give a background because I'm the host, and it's a BD. I actually have 7 tabs open. So if I try to give a background, I think my computer might crash. So I can't. Yeah. Fantastic. We do have a lot more guests dropping by. There's 19 of us so far. I would recommend everyone to just wait for a little bit, relax. In 10-15 minutes, we will get started. We're trying to get our other speaker to figure out where he is. Hello, sir. So good to have you. Welcome. Looking good, sir. It's been a while since I've seen you physically. Your audio, sir, is still connecting. So I think it's connected now. Let me unmute you. Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry about it late. Okay, it should be okay.
Ms. Noon, sir, I think we can just wait 5 to 10 more minutes and then we can go ahead and get started with the webinar.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Is there a background tone? It's nice actually. So is it in your home office?
They're asking me?
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Looks really-
vacated my office already, so I have made a office here. Yeah,
It looks really nice.
yeah. But this is everyone has
Yeah,
this,
yeah,
for,
yeah. For the most part, so
particularly
yes.
for current situation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Aisha, I think we'll wait for another 5 minutes, maybe maximum, because I think 15 minutes is pushing it.
Yeah.
Actually, I think you can get started because it's 6 o'clock. Um,
Okay, sure, sir. So should we get started?
yeah, sure. Give me like a minute. I need to pin you. Where are you? There you go. Yep.
Okay, everyone. So hi, everyone. I'm Aisha. I'm the Regional Program Associate for this project with Bard College, New York, and the Open Society University Network. So welcome to the BRACU University version of the Bangladesh Climate Dialogues for 2021. And we're so glad to have you here. So just to give everyone an overview of what the project is, basically, university and high school students across the planet along with society, organizations, businesses, will tune into 100 different events across the world hosted by different universities in different countries around the world. So you might ask, how can we kind of achieve the ambitious goal of green recovery? This is precisely what the webinars aim to do. We aim to make a difference with climate and in the education sector by making climate a class, the main motto of what the program is. So just to introduce the special guests that we have with us today at the event. So we have Dr. Etienne Nurul Amin, sir. He's a professor of the Department of Economics and Social Sciences and the School of Humanities and Social Sciences at BRAC University. Professor Amin has achieved quite a lot. He's achieved the title of a Senior Research Fellow at the IRD UNCRD, and he has also been a member of the International Expert Group on the Reduce, Reuse, and Recycle program, and also in a venture that supports environmentally sustainable transport. We also have with us Mr. Philippe Foret. He's a professor of environmental humanities in the Department of English and Humanities, and he's actually the Dean of the School of Humanities and Social Sciences at BRAC University. Ever since 2013, he has also been working with the Environmental Humanities Working Group at the Swiss Academic Society for Environmental Research and Ecology. So yeah, that pretty much sums up our special panelists. And hosting the event, we actually have Mr. Masnood. He's a lecturer at the Department of Economics and Social Sciences at University, and he'll be hosting the session today. So Masnood, sir, I'm actually going to hand over the session to you now to play a video by our partners at Bard College, New York for Solve Climate by 2030, an initiative once again by Bard College, New York and the Open Society University Network. So yeah, handing over to you, Mr. Masnood.
Thank you, Aisha. It's a pleasure to see you and all of you here. So welcome. Thank you, Dr. Philippe and Dr. Nurul Amin for joining us. I know it's a difficult time. I would have preferred a seminar for this, but we unfortunately have to use whatever we have. So we do have over 40 people viewing this event from the Zoom event. And at the same time, we have over 20 people viewing it from the Facebook Live as well. So we do have a substantial amount of people. It would be great if we could have over 100. So I would actually like to first thank, Bard College and OSUN for hosting and giving us the opportunity to host this event. And at the same time, I think definitely Dr. Philippe and Dr. Nuramin for joining us today. But most importantly, I would like to thank Aisha and Tanvir because they really did work a lot to get this happening. So everything that you see here today, all the people that's here, all the events that's happening all across the universities, they really did give a lot of blood, sweat, and tears to make it happen. So unfortunately, since it's not a seminar, we can't give a round of applause to them. We can give a digital round of applause. So yeah, there's that. I am going to try and play the video. Let's see. It's a bit tough to get videos to play, but I'll see if I can make it work. I'm going to share my sound. could you please let me know, Aisha, Tanvir, if the video plays? Take it. So I'm going to start right now. So watch the video. It's not too long. It's about 4 minutes long. And then we will go back to the session.
Welcome to the Solve Climate Global Dialogues. You're participating in one of 125 events held across the planet, including in almost all 50 US states, part of a global project called Solve Climate by 2030. My name is Eben Goodstein, and I'm an economist and director of the Graduate Programs in Sustainability at Bard College in New York, the lead organizer for Solve Climate. This last year has been difficult for everyone. As the world looks forward to recovery from COVID, we are focusing tonight on the most important question facing humanity. What can we do in this year in our regions to help solve climate change while supporting struggling communities that have faced widespread loss of life, economic disaster, and joblessness? Worldwide, from Australia to Kyrgyzstan, from Colombia to Malaysia, and from South Carolina to South Africa, Solve Climate audiences are hearing from local experts and young leaders about concrete steps that can really help nations solve climate change while creating much needed jobs and incomes for everybody. The year 2020 was one of the 2 hottest years in human history, bringing with it massive forest and grassland fires, record-breaking storms and hurricanes, and relentless rising seas. Solving climate is the challenge which the human species must now face. There's hope for the future. Solutions have continued to advance. This year, China committed to building a carbon-neutral economy, while the US rejoined the Paris Agreement. Solar, wind, and battery prices continue to fall, while major car companies have been rushing to electrify the global fleet. Worldwide, movements for Black Lives Matter and Me Too are leading in bringing much delayed and urgently needed justice to the world. Time is short. We have until 2030, 10 years to solve climate. We can get a lot done in this decade. We have the solutions, but only if we focus the world on climate solutions and justice, and then do the work we have to do in our own cities and regions. For students listening, you are the leaders. Without you, the future we envision will not come. I'm asking tonight for your help. We're going to discover powerful ideas for climate solutions and climate justice and how you can be a part of the solution. But this message must reach beyond those of us who are listening right now. Would you ask all your teachers this week in every subject to make climate a class? The teacher can assign tonight's webinars homework for the students and then afterwards have a one-class period discussion. And we mean every subject, from art to engineering, psychology to business, dance to chemistry. Teachers don't need to be a climate expert to lead a discussion about climate change. The Solve Climate project has easy-to-use teacher's guides in nearly every subject and in 3 languages to help teachers make climate relevant to their class. It only takes courage. Don't take no for an answer. Ask them, why not? This is your future. You'll be surprised how many teachers will say yes and thank you. Imagine you, thousands of leaders like you around the world asking their teachers once every school term to make climate a class. That means every term going forwards, hundreds of thousands, millions of students worldwide in their classes talking about climate solutions. COVID has shown how fragile our global economy and society are to extreme events. It's also shown that vulnerable people are facing the hardest, most damaging impacts. This is also true with climate change. Science has made it clear that unchecked, global warming will mean an unending onslaught of extreme events, causing untold suffering for humanity and all creatures, species driven to extinction, a planet of environmental refugees. And yet, in many ways, this is the most exciting time to ever be alive as a human. We have the tools and networks and technologies to rewire the world with clean energy, reimagine the global food system, reinvent transportation, and regenerate forests and grasslands, and be well on our way to solving climate by 2030. Tonight, we will learn how to do this in our own cities, our own towns, our own regions. Thank you for the work you will do to promote climate solutions and a just world.
Okay, that was a video. Thank you for listening in, guys. I think Aisha, would you like to take the torch again?
Right, sir. So now that we're done getting an introduction from Mr. Evan at Bard College, New York, I actually would like to invite our first panelist to speak about what he will be speaking on. So I'd like to invite Dr. Philip Foray to speak about climate Caucasianism and the next step in the decolonization of knowledge. So Dean Foray, please go ahead.
Um, um, Hello, good evening, everyone. My name is Philippe Foray. I don't want to give a lecture. I would prefer to tell a few stories. And maybe I should begin by a self-introduction. I'm not a local expert. I'm not a young leader, but I used to be young. And some 40 years ago, I was a student. I was a student in geography, and my job that summer was to map a glacier on Mount Shasta. I went there with a team. We spent 1 week on top of a volcano, busy making measurements. And all the data I got was very troubling. I could not believe my own results. My glacier was melting. I was very careful with my calculations, and all I could see was a glacier that was gaining speed, that was losing volume, and that was melting. I had no explanation for that 40 years ago. And I got a B for that class. I came back to that story later on in my career, when I realized that I was in my inability to understand new data, an explanation that went back to my own childhood and to 400 years in the history of the production of scientific knowledge. I come from Africa. I am an outcome of French colonialism and French imperialism. I went to school in Dakar. I am now in Dhaka. And what I witnessed in the 1970s was the Sahel famine, massive starvation, people dying because of a drought that lasted for 7 years. This is when I thought that perhaps we should think about a different path to development. This is when I decided to become a geographer, believing that perhaps science would help society survive natural disasters. I was naive, of course. I was a teenager. I was naive when I was on my glacier on Mount Shasta in California. I became a bit less naive with age, as you can think. And today I'm not naive at all. Today I'm simply upset and angry. Angry at our own blindness, angry at our own pride, angry at our own prejudices. What I'm speaking about? Look at the background of the screen. What do you see? Make climate class, solve climate Bangladesh, and then there is a map at the bottom of this flyer. And the map shows the North Atlantic Ocean, North America, and Western Europe. This is not an innocent choice. And this is why we're having a huge challenge in front of us. I've given a name to this challenge. I've been looking for this concept for many years, the concept of climate Caucasianism. Caucasianism is a neologism, doesn't exist. You won't find it in a dictionary. It used to have a different name. It used to be called German Aryan science. It used to be called Victorian science. It used to be called colonial science. It used to be called the science of the king. And for that, we need to go back in time. We need to go back to one precise instant in time, in history, an essay written in 1776 and submitted to the Academy of Sciences in Paris by Jean-Baptiste Bourguignon d'Anville. Jean-Baptiste Bourguignon d'Anville was the king geographer. He was the most prominent scientist of the time, a member of several academies, and the one who was responsible for the processing of all new information coming from South Asia, Central Asia, and East Asia. After 40 years, he decided it was about time to retire and to give something to posterity. And that something was a small essay about methodology. Methodology on how to process disruptive data, information that does not fit with our beliefs, or framework, or methodology. And this small essay is a basis of the modern academic enterprise. 1776, the essay has been totally forgotten. Memoirs sur la Chine was the title. The essay has been totally forgotten because it has become so much part of us that we cannot imagine doing science without a methodology, without a review of the field, without peer review of our results, without a critical eyes on the blind spots of our micro domains. 1776 resulted in many things that year. One of them was the independence of a new country called the United States of America, but this resulted in a new enterprise led by Europe, what you see on the eastern side of the map behind me. Europe conquering the rest of the world, Europe exploiting, enslaving other continents, and Europe deciding that it was its responsibility to write the geography, the history, the culture of all the peoples and civilizations it was busy exploiting abroad. A consequence of that was a strong belief in a natural order that would put white Europeans on top and the rest of humanity at the bottom. A consequence of this belief was very obviously backed by science. A tenet, a credo, a statement about the fact that non-European peoples were simply too lazy, too indolent, too passive, too female to enter history. They had no agency. Why? Because of climate. Climate in Asia, in Africa, in Latin America was an encouragement for laziness. Only Europeans would be energetic enough because of climate to have the drive to conquer, to exploit, and to discover. I'm writing a book for the University of Chicago Press on a non-documented outcome, meaning on the work done by geographers in Asia who become very aware of the fact that climate was changing, who became aware of the fact that society was changing, who were aware of the fact that climate and society were changing together, and didn't know what to do with their results, the results of topographical work, the result of cartographical work. this type of impotence, this type of inability was the experience I had on Mount Shasta on my glacier as I was a student watching my glacier melting. In 1906, a student wrote a small book about climate and geography as a pivot of history. And that student believed that he had found in Asia, in changes in the climate of Asia, the ultimate driver of all change in human history. That student was at Harvard, he got his degree, and he never got a job. Because his theory and his analysis, which was backed by fieldwork, was just too radical for the time. It could not match what geographers who were full professors were arguing about the lack of climate change, the impossibility of climate change in Asia. 1906, we had survey done in Iran. Again, results that were excellent. We got funding a few years ago to look at the results of a 1906-1907 campaign. The data was extremely precise. And when I say precise by the centimeter. This data has never been used. That's never been used by anyone. We had more campaigns, more survey expeditions led in Turkestan, in Turkmenistan, in Soviet Central Asia, in Chinese Central Asia, in Xinjiang. We had for 7 years an expedition on the geography of Central Asia led by Dr. Sven Hedin. 7 years that resulted in an encyclopedia of about 80 volumes. The first volume was published in 1943. Everything can be found at the Royal Library of Stockholm. My friends, when I went to Stockholm in 2005, I asked to see the first volume of this encyclopedia. And then I asked for a knife because nobody had opened the first page of the first volume of this encyclopedia. This says a lot about our willingness not to learn and not to discover, because this would go against beliefs we have about ourselves. And this is also why we need to decolonize science now. Decolonizing science is just doing justice to ourselves, to our local communities, to the vast majority of the human population called politely the Global South, and finally to Europe itself. Look at COVID-19. Look at this incredible age Europe and North America, which are in my back, have gone through. The reason why Europe has been caught unprepared was that this virus was Chinese. And in China, in India, in the Congo, in Guinea, yes, you have viruses and people die, but these people who die are not whites, they are not Europeans, they don't really matter. There is nothing to learn from them and from these countries, meaning that when this virus arrived in Europe, institutions were completely lost at what to do next in order to inform, in order to protect. And we are now entering the second year of the COVID-19 pandemic, and Europeans are still unable to protect their own population. And this illustrates my point quite well. When we speak about solving climate by 2030, we must speak about inclusion. Climate will be solved globally only if we include Bangladesh in the solution, and only if we include the solution developed by Bangladesh. As of today, research on climate is done primarily in Antarctica, in the Arctic, in polar areas, or it is done in where you can find money. So there is money for research in Europe, therefore there is research done on climate in Europe. But the fact is that once again, the global south, the huge majority of population, human population, well, we don't live in Antarctica, do we? And we don't live on the North Pole, do we? We live in places that are not so far away from Bangladesh. Between Japan and Iran, we have, I think, 55% of human population. And this is where we should really invest in doing research for climate. And then there is something else, which is not only about research as we always have done, research done according to the recipes and methodology developed by Jean-François Bourguignon d'Anville in 1776. No, we must do a different type of research, decolonize research. And for that, we need to hear from the local communities. Because when I speak about Harvard, when I speak about the Geographer of the King, when I speak about the Academy of Science, when I speak about the Royal Library of Stockholm, I am always speaking about elite institutions, institutions that exclude, institutions that work for a small minority, institutions for the benefits of privilege and the reproduction of these privileges. That time is over. What is missing from this title, Soil of Climate Bangladesh, is a very easy concept. I spoke about Caucasianism. This is a new concept. We can speak about this later on. I have not spoken about Anthropocene because my colleagues will do that. I want to speak about the concept of peace and justice because this concept is easily understandable everywhere, anywhere. And this is what also we do in my school, the School of Humanities and Social Sciences at BRACU University. Again, I don't want to give a lecture. Like all of you, I've come to this series in order to learn, in order to be inspired, in order to get new ideas for my work. But I think it's about time for me to just shut up and listen to the other speakers.
Thank you so much, Dean, for your wonderful speech on your topic. It was actually quite amazing. We're so glad to have you here to speak about the topic. Masnoon, sir, do you want to add anything on?
I think I'll add maybe during the discussion at the end of the talk. I think that will be better. I think now we can bring Nurul Amin sir to the forte.
Definitely. So I'd like to invite Dr. Nurul Amin sir, speaking on green recovery in Bangladesh, land, water, forest saving, and labor utilizing strategies towards biodiversity conservation. So Nurul Amin sir, if you would please go on. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for including me in this program, and more so for allowing me to speak on this topic of green recovery in Bangladesh, and with the subtitle that I have chosen, that is land, water, forest, and labor utilization for pursuing that goal of green recovery of Bangladesh. I'm so glad that our Dean has this background of geography and also a sense of history, because the importance of geography with the economists, particularly physical geography, we have not, location itself has not been a big thing. We talk about what goods to be produced, for whom to be produced, for how to be produced, but not so much where to be produced. Yes, with regional economics, urban economics, we have addressed that problem to an extent. And we are also to recognize that the economists' weakness, even environmental economics, has not been part of economics curriculum for I don't know, even when I went to, not to speak of Bangladesh, even when I went for graduate study in Canada, still environmental economics was not a course there. Even today in BRACU University, it is an elective course. And in fact, it is not even environment. You see what should be the most important in this respect, it should be ecological one. Ecology is so important, but we don't think about this. I don't know, the way I would love to speak, maybe it will not be that organized, but at least I should mention this, that whenever speaking on a topic, yeah, like methodology at somewhat a bit of a higher level knowledge seeking and research, it should be like what I say informally, what, why, how. What is the problem? Why the problem as it is, and how we address the problem after we identify the reasons and causes. In formal expressions, we call the explanatory factors of a particular problem. Yeah, and speaking on Bangladesh, our country, our vulnerability, our fragility, this is very well known, but we have, for good reasons, hammered on the difficulties, but we have somewhat glossed over the what we have. And what we have, for example, we have seen the population as the biggest problem. We as economists started from the first class in economics, the problem is population. The vicious cycle of poverty with more population, consumption is higher, so savings is low, so investment is low. As a result, income is low, so we perpetuate in that vicious cycle. To an extent that is true, but how that vicious cycle can be turned to a virtuous cycle by utilizing the same population. Yeah, we have not brought that up so much. Even demonstrating it in last, at least last 3 decades, that the whatever gains to economic growth and development have taken place in Bangladesh, it is precisely because of, from that population, the labor pool that we have, whether it is this agriculture, which can still feed this 160 million plus people. Even when this population was much, much less, we had famine. We have not just a big famine kind, there were shortage of food on an annual basis. So it is the labor. Yeah. Yes, there has been this water seeds fertilizer technology that has facilitated. So utilizing the labor, and then look at whether it is construction sector, yeah, whether it is the RMG sector, whether it is overseas employment, this has been the labor based. We could do much more. Our task here, we have only pursued the green bucks, yeah, and the pursuance of the green bucks, the mighty dollar, yeah, the remittances, the unimaginable exploitation of labor and the sacrifice that take place, and then we say the results have been increasing, yeah. But the point I'm trying to make, that the focusing on population has been a wrong one. Still, for in highlighting the environment, not just that developmental problem, there was it is population. In my own environmental economics text I use by Field and Field for undergraduate 1, There also, this is total environmental impact is equal to environmental impact per person multiplied by total population. Yes, environmental impact per person can make some difference, but total population is the major variable there. Or you take the I, environmental impact is equal to PAT. That is again population, affluence, technology. Yep, technology can make the difference in both a positive and negative. Yes, affluence is there, lifestyle, how that can affect, but again, the population is the culprit. To what extent we need to reflect on this, that this identification, how sometimes it may sound cynical, instead of all renewable energy, population is the most renewable energy, somewhat at ease. And this is renewable energy. But we have substituted that, yeah, with labor. Instead of utilizing the labor, instead of having adequate labor utilization and strategies, we have rather sold out to utilizing the modern technology for productivity increase, yeah, and as a result, more and more labor we have not thought about, at least adequately, for utilizing the labor. Let me also, like if I say the matter of geography, I would rather say even ecology, the ecological resources of a land, of a country. A country, you know, this is nation state. We are today one country within for 25 years after we became another country, and before 75, 80 years, we had another country. We don't know in few decades what will be our country. Yes, but the land where we live, what is the best characterization of Bangladesh? It is not Sonar Bangla. It is Sujola, Sufola, Shosho, Shamola. I'm sure every Bangladeshi from at primary school already, probably one of the first sentence in any essay has written, in Bengali it is Bangladesh ekti nodimatrik desh, or Bangladesh is a riverine country. That is this, in fact, this mighty rivers can bring devastation. I myself have been devastated, my family, yeah, by the mighty Meghna. By the way, that brings me to draw some, and again, a bit of a cynical statement that climate change before climate change. This is kind of saying, like, there is a book called Industrialization before industrialization. So how colonization that Dean referred to, what colonization at least alluded to, what it has caused to us, and how the indigenous industrialization was deindustrialized by colonization. Now the climate change, well, what my point is, you see, when new paradigm is floated, our more chronic one, some episodal problem, for example, yeah, where that somewhat hides more chronic one. Bangladesh, take the example of riverbank erosion. I don't know how many of you know, every year in Bangladesh, a large number of population gets affected by the riverbank erosion. You would not know. I have newspaper clippings for many years. I have done work on this. One of my PhD students did a dissertation. We published a book called, I have been made co-author, the supervisor densification for riverbank erosion. What should be the settlement planning for this? So this has been going on for Bangladesh for ages. In fact, in Bangladesh, this poverty research we do, my understanding of poverty phenomena, two major channels of poverty is, one is orphanhood, yeah, losing the breadwinner of a family, particularly if this is the father. The other is riverbank erosion victims. You survey the slum areas of any city or the informal population who work in the informal sector, you'll realize this. This chronic problem, yeah? So this is part of our life. So as if we can live with it, yeah. Then local environmental problem. Thank you for mentioning this 3R issue, a 3R that we work. Look at the waste management, the local environmental problem. Environmental problems divided into global one and environmental, local and the global one. So climate change has overtaken what we endure on a routine basis, on a daily basis. Moment you come out from your residence, you probably encounter a waste dumping site, probably cover our nose, then pass through that dumping site. And it is not only matter of covering that nose, yeah, and that you protect yourself. A lot of things are there. So I cannot go into all these details. You see, the point I'm trying to make, that we need to act. This is also a well-known motto kind, that think globally, act locally. Yeah. So acting locally, and that is very much for our own need. The self-sufficient village system, for example, that in fact, even Karl Marx of all people welcomed British colonization to break down this system. But I guess we cannot be so clear in your mind what we are facing today, that this necessarily this self-sufficient village system has been a curse kind. Marx did not say that it's as if people easily feel a sense of contentment. So material progress is not being pursued. Yeah. But having seen this material progress that is pursued by the capitalist system and promoting the human greed and what havoc that it can create, that is so vividly present among us, yeah, all over. It's not, it's the humanity as a whole. We are part of that. So the problem is that when a big problem, big issue comes, I don't know whether it is ingrained, to what extent it ingrained in human psyche, or to what extent it is also somehow promoted or reinforced by a particular socioeconomic system. This COVID-19, already in the first round, somewhat it appeared that we are coming out of this and we are ready to do our business as usual. All the economic stimulus packages that have been used by Bangladesh and probably for in every country almost. So it has been taken. The major lesson is not to take how you put the economy in the course of growth again. There should have been a lesson, more profound lesson to be taken, that the kind of lifestyle that we have, the system we have. By the way, with that village system, I bring there another thought, that what is an optimal scale? A scale is an issue. This globalization, is it an feasible, practical scale? In fact, in sustainable development literature, one point is made that despite all the good things in a socialist system, or in the Soviet system, we economists say, yeah, one problem was they could not give the right dose of incentive system. Yeah, or from the political point of view, the individual freedom cannot be ensured. That has brought the failure. But my sustainable development literature tells me that issue has the scale. Just imagine that how much to be produced, for whom to be produced, yeah, and those tasks being set for a country. Russia itself is the largest country of the world. And then you bring other countries which are part of USSR, and your central planning you are doing for all those. So this is the scale in which, yeah, how that system can sustain. So we have, without thinking carefully, the optimality of a scale. It is not that for everything there is optimality of a particular size. It would vary, of course, depending on the particular production, particular service, particular work, and all that. But we have given in so much to this. And this is simply a culmination of colonization that started. Yeah. So I'm contrasting this. I'm not saying that economy, society, we can go back, even if that was something good, like that self-sufficient village system. But the point is, main point is that we need to know that the resource base, the ecological resource base, why this population even multiplied in Bangladesh, at least one reason ought to be the fertility of the land. If so much, if we could not produce enough, population cannot multiply. I have lived in Canada. Why the native Indians did not multiply? Yeah, that many. So there can be probably examples one would get that at least, again, now, if nothing can be explained by one variable. Yeah, but still one variable, one explanation, I would say, at least hypothesize that we could produce food. The land has been fertile. And why it is so? What is our main resource? It is water. Land also here, land is not enough for us. Yeah, but that is what we have chosen, that we will carve out this 160 million. It was not 160 million at that point, but even that 75 million, that this is our dreamland. Yeah, so the our land, and land is limited, but we are a water rich country. Probably nobody will contest. Nobody will can contest that. But what we have done to that, and because of land, we are very fish rich country. Yeah, at least has been, and is still not that bad really. But what are you doing to that? Again, for earning that green bucks, yeah, we have built the tanneries, yeah, or the shrimp culture, yeah, and doing things. You see, the water. Moment we use water, we have focused on water supply for good reason. People do not have access to water, so we'll have to supply water, if possible, to each and every household, to every individual. But have we thought about the moment water is used, that water becomes wastewater? Yeah, and then moment we use the water in the kitchen, it becomes even worse wastewater. And moment we flush in the toilet, it becomes even much worse wastewater. But have we thought about this wastewater treatment? When we established the tanneries along the Buriganga, yeah, was there not a single imaginative person that came out that this outright draining out the most toxic waste to this river? I have my own relatives. I came to Dhaka city when after I finished my primary school, class 6, for starting my class 6 year. But I have a relative, he told me, I did not drink Buriganga water by taking with hands, but he said he used to take Buriganga water for drinking, like as in many instances in Bangladesh, people used to do taking water from the river. So that was the water. And it is not my imagination, by the way. 1972, after our liberation war, my first little task was, as an economist statistician, to work with S.K. Dey and one agriculture university vice chancellor from India, and Ashfaq Rahman, CSP from the government representative. Let's not go to the anecdote so much. So my one task was that 7 volume of reports published by World Bank about the water resources of the country, and my task was summarizing this. See, this water, I was born along the Meghna, so I know it. But those guys, the World Bank had to tell us that how rich we were by water resource. In 1998, or which year was that, the devastating flood took place, and I was at AIT, and I was making a plea to AIT President Alistair North that Bangladesh in this situation. What AIT is doing for this? You have a water resource engineering department, flood protection, all that, and he sent the division chair of all the departments to Bangladesh. I remember at that time he said that you guys don't understand that you are, even now I guess it is said that we are the 4th largest freshwater fish producing country. So we have, yes, for good reason again, the disaster has been, Bangladesh used to be characterized as a disaster prone country. In fact, in 1972-70, that November devastation of Bhola, that led to our, in a way, the independence movement. Maulana Bhashani, after coming from Bhola in the Polton Maidan, he said that from today, Azad Purbo Pakistan they declared. So yes, that kind of devastation has been there. It has been part of our life. Yes, I said my own family, the Meghna, but despite that what have been our blessings, we could not cultivate that, culture that, promote that, protect that, and we have been destroying that in the name of this pursuits of economic growth. And what is economic growth and how does it take place? What is per capita income that the very first lesson in an environmental economics course is where it shows that we need G production. We have to withdraw natural resources for the M. M for M means you take the best from the nature, but you give the worst to the nature. After the residuals are created, both from the production process as well from the consumption cycle, these are outright thrown into the land, into the water. So you take the best and you give the worst, the toxic waste. And there you mentioned the 3R. So 3R, you hear about reduce, reuse, recycle, but which one most popular? Which one is popular? What what everybody is somewhat focusing on, at least to the extent, not reduce. It is, I see Dr. Enamul Haq is there, a great economist, and he knows all this. I'm trying to say, maybe we'll tell even a better way. You see, so the 3R, first is reduce, then is recycle. What's the other one? Reduce, reuse, and recycle. But reduce, not so much discussion on this reduce. Why not? Our lifestyle will be affected. We happily and merrily pursuing the Europeanization, Westernization, modernization, more goods, more economic growth, more economic development. But what it entails, that not to speak of adjustment of that, even it is not even discussed. Let me tell you here that economists, fellow economists warned the limits to growth. That was 1973. Yeah. But before that, to the humanity, the call was from In Silent Spring. What's the name? Rachel Carson. And then 68 or 69, the tragedy of commons. Have we taken note of that? Yes, we read. Many of us know. But acting on that matter, whether it is globally, whether it is nationally, whether it is locally, unfortunately have not the case. In fact, Bangladesh Constitution, it has been late, but still it has been Article 18A, finally a clause on the environment has been added in our constitution. In fact, Pakistan did it in 1973. I don't know exactly, India must have done also earlier, but we took so much weight with somewhat another notorious amendment. With that, one good thing happened, that is this environmental, the Article 18A, where the environmental protection measures to be taken, it is there. At least, you see, the benefit of having something in the constitution is that all the laws, the regulations, then you can act. Otherwise, the capitalists will go to the court when you want to regulate, they will say, it is violate the constitution. But our constitution now already has the provision that can lead to enactment of laws, regulation, clauses, yeah, policy measures. So we have a protection, blanket protection by the constitution. Okay, so as I said, I will not be very organized. So what we need to do, yeah, biodiversity conservation. You see how much effort has been gone on protecting the Sundarbans. Yeah, my own student, take pride of him, Anu Muhammad. The year after year, hundreds of street protest writings that have been there. Yeah, yes, may not have been fully successful. We need that kind of environmental activism for this. Now, my main point for land, water, forest saving is that the labor. Yes, I'm sure many of you are economists here, or you'll not have to be an economics student even to know that one simple thing, but very powerful. The unfortunate part, two good things we cannot do simultaneously. If we pursue growth, then there will be equity problem. If we pursue environmental protection measures, there will be effect on maybe economic growth and development. So often it is the case that two good things you cannot pursue together. That's why trade-off there. But let's not take that is given. Human ingenuity can create the necessary institution to alter that potential trade-off between the two good goals that we need to pursue. And there are examples of doing that. And then there are lucky situations also that there are synergy. My favorite example for this is that you utilize labor that will reduce poverty, say, let's say for building pedestrian ways, footpath, greening, watering, yeah, afforestation. So this is our main resource, the labor, yeah, that we can create. And there are good examples in Bangladesh in social entrepreneurship. the big names, we talk about the success stories. It is nothing but making use of the labor. They were smart enough that this is the best way to utilize the labor, and then the empires that we can build on that. So in Bangladesh, we have these different empires, whether it is from business entrepreneurs or social entrepreneurs. Unfortunately, I don't see yet emergence of environmental entrepreneurs. This is another irony, that those guys who for profiteering have destroyed the environment, my land, my water, and all that, those guys are now making money, yeah, for cleaning up the environment. Okay, let them do, but I think we can do it better if more and more environmental entrepreneurship for the cleaning up of the environment, all that, whether it is afforestation, whether it is for greening, whether it is for more renewable energy, yeah, anything that we consider contributes to the greening the economy, greening the country, greening our living, that would add to what we want to pursue. And we do have the means for this. For this, we don't need foreign technology. We do not need capital intensive technology. It is simply the muscle power. Yes, the muscle power, sometimes if we cannot feed ourselves, we cannot have that muscle power. But I would like to believe that we have come to a point that we can feed ourselves, and we can make use of our labor for all the different things that we need. And how will this take place actually in practice? In practice, for organizing this, we need to create different kind of brigades, starting from the village to the neighborhood in a city or a town or community. Scale is an important issue again. You can do it in a country wide with the biggest scale. It's small country, but it's still big. It's still big. We need to divide, and we need to have the optimal scale through which these brigades can be organized. Main thing will be utilizing the labor. Yeah, here it comes to my mind. I was once working in Vietnam for a drainage and sewage system. In fact, it is about decentralized wastewater management. So in a community, we are comparing between Bangladesh and Vietnam. Yeah, so our Bangladesh case study was in the Tangail, the Kumudeni hospital, the way the wastewater is treated with 7 pond. This is called pond stabilization system. From one pond to the other, it goes. And more centralized treatment facility like we used to have in Pagla, even in Pakistan time from the school, we went to see that, but highly capital intensive. In recent years, we have established another one. But in Vietnam, what they do, everybody is to give labor for drainage, sewage, all that cleaning. But if someone cannot, for good reason, give the labor, they can buy that labor time. And then the labor fund is created for doing that. But the main resource is again labor, making use of the labor for doing all the work that is necessary for drainage and sewage system for the neighboring community. So there are good examples. We know that in history it has taken place in Mao, China, for example. Yeah, there are other practices in our own country. There are practices. I again generalize in saying whatever has happened in Bangladesh, it is because of the smart entrepreneurs who recognized that this labor is our resource and we need to utilize. Unfortunately, their utilization has been more for a crude labor exploitation. But our task for greening, our task of restoring the green Bangladesh, which is not, we are not a desert country. Yeah, even desert country has transformed their situation. Yeah, but we have been so much serious in this respect, but we have um, we have not made, we not only have destroyed, but time has come. No more we can just live with this situation. We need to reverse. So I think I have already taken a lot of time. I have a lot of things, but I would not, let me try to summarize that what we need to know. Bangladesh, its geography, its demography, and its economic setting, we need to study in depth. Yeah, its resource base, what is going good for us, and what are the problems that we encounter. And it is no more, in fact, this from this COVID there have been also some good example. I work with the informal labor force, informal economy, but this time it showed those who were in this informal sector, many of them returned to the rural area and got engaged in activities which contribute to our agenda here is green recovery. We have very probably simplistically thought, or maybe not simplistically, it appeared to be so obvious that so many people we cannot feed by keeping them in the rural area. So I myself wrote a paper, Transformation of Bangladesh from a Rural Agricultural Economy to an Urban Industrial Economy. Yes, if that transformation we could do without causing what we have done to the water bodies, what we have done by land grabbing, then we could we would not be in a situation that we have. So we are not something imagining here. We are not trying to imitate someone. It is not a goal that we are setting what is so much beyond our comprehension. We have been there, and it does not mean, by the way, also I'm trying to say as if all the time, sometimes you say some dreamy, going back to the good old days. I'm not saying that also. It is with all the education, learning, lesson, experience that we have, like postmodernist value system, for example. I take it more in a positive sense, where we preserve our good old things and we also emulate and adapt what we have got from modernization, industrialization, even westernization, Europeanization, whatever way we'd like to say. But we need to blend this together, adding new things to the old. Yeah, Jane Jacobs wrote in her book, The Economy of Cities. She has shown the civilization which just give in to a conquering or more advanced one. If we totally give in to this Europeanization, yeah, westernization, modernization, globalization, will be nowhere. Or if we totally reject that and we think that we can survive what we are doing 200 years ago, that is also obviously wrong. Meanwhile, all this time, lot of learning has taken place. We have a huge young population. Yeah, I think this population, these young guys, if we can make use of them, unfortunately, that this what need to be done in this respect, only these social entrepreneurs or the NGOs making use, or the government RMG owners, or the real estate owners that they have made, but for social purpose, for environmental purpose, we need to do. So I'm sure this is going to occur, not automatically, but we all together need to contribute in emergence of the labor utilization strategies for the purpose of again restoring our green. That's why the title is green recovery. It is not imagination, it's not dreaming. It is feasible, it is possible, it is doable. I think better I stop. I have uh, uh, probably more things to say. But by the way, let me, in this conservation I have used. So conservation, yeah, we need with an altruistic mind here. You see, conservation philosophy or values are based from utilitarian value based as well as intrinsic value based. So although I would say it is, we don't gain by rejecting those who would like to conserve only because of instrumental value or utilitarian value based. Yeah, but we don't lose anything. Like if we are the ones who philosophically believe that for very intrinsic sense, we need to conserve or preserve each and every species. Yeah. Yes, we have advanced in science and technology, but still we do not know that well that which species is which way is protecting the humanity. Yeah, I'm sure some information that you get with regard to COVID-19, which has to do with what we have done to the nature. So conservation philosophy or values, yes, ought to be built primarily for intrinsic value. We have to recognize we are no special species. And even if we are somewhat special from some sense, our speciality depends on the other ecological resource and other species existence. I don't think science has still revealed this adequately for us to know this. So even if, without knowing it for sure, at least let us make this assumption. I think it is rather a safe assumption that there is a role of all ecological resources or all species for our own survival, but not at the cost of them. We need to live together. But then, if there are those who would still be in our camp for conservation and preservation because they know that growth will not take place if M cannot be withdrawn from the nature, water cannot be obtained. Yeah, so that's only a plus for us. So the camp, bigger it is, the tarp, bigger it is, more we can bring to our fold will benefit. We are, I am a gone generation. We have gone through different phases. Yes, we have material progress because born in a rural area, village, yeah, coming to Dhaka, particularly I remember not Canada, America even did not surprise me so much as I was surprised by in Japan. In my 1 year living, I wrote to my 2 daughters that it is the ultimate of urban industrial development. 11 cities have underground rail. Yeah, so travels by Shinkansen, a boy coming from Hizla and Borishal to Dhaka city, almost still probably with a 12-hour long journey, আর এই লঞ্চ ডুবিতে সেই দিনও মারা গেছে। উপজেলা chairman of Hizla also died in the lunch. So it epitomizes the situation that there. So we have been mesmerized by the technology, and yes, we shall pursue that. But go to Japan, go to Korea, yeah, or other developed countries, it is not with that much of devastation of the nature as already at this little level of per capita income that we have, the devastation has not been that much. So environmental rot has become too much for Bangladesh. There is nothing can be more urgent task for what you need to do. So that's why this green agenda we need to pursue with utmost interest. So I'm sure, and it will not be necessarily have to be at the cost of your comforts, your spirituality, yeah, your happiness, your contentment. Believe me, it does not come only from material progress, only from economic growth, only from per capita income. I would like to believe the young guys at least know it, yeah, and they are our hope that I call the flower children of the environment. So we look forward to their leadership for not only our country and economy, but also as a global citizen to contribute to conservation and preservation. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Professor Nurul Amin, for speaking on green recovery. A lot of our participants really enjoyed your speech. We're so glad to have you here, and Dean Foray as well. We're very honored. So moving on to the next speaker, our host, Mr. Masnoon. He's going to be speaking on the Anthropocene review. So Masnoon, sir, please, if you would go on. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Aisha. Thank you so much, Nurul Amin. Sorry, it was a beautiful, very insightful bit of talk that you've given us. Could Aisha, could you let me know if you can see my screen, my small presentation?
Yes, we can see your screen, sir.
Okay, take it. So thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to talk. A little bit of an introduction to who I am. I am Masnoon Khair. I'm an anthropologist by nature, and I will not be doing justice by saying that I know more than Dr. Philippe and Dr. Nurul Amin. I am still a flower child, or whatever the term that Nurul Amin sir used for us. So I am still going through a lot of experiences, a lot of new things that I am learning. But I am going to share whatever limited knowledge that I have about the environment. I am particularly interested in the environment because I did my master's in environmental anthropology. Um, I will start with a very small quote. Um, which says the human race exaggerates everything, its heroes, its enemies, its importance. And that is very true. We have only lived in this small blue pale dot for, Homo sapiens have been here for the last 250,000 years. But imagine the damage, imagine the suffering, imagine the consequences that we have to face for the limited time that we have been here. And we actually have a very interesting name for that as well. We call it the Anthropocene. Now, mind you, here, this is not a formal geological epoch. Epoch means an era, like you have the Jurassic, you have the Triassic, and so on and so forth. But slowly and steadily, more and more scientists, more and more anthropologists are using this term because we see the damage that we have done on Earth and on ourselves as well. And it really starts with the introduction of industrialization 200 years ago. But we see the weapons that we have created, the weapons of mass destruction that we have created on this planet. Uranium, plutonium, all these materials, they take millions, if not billions of years to decompose and settle down with the rest of Mother Nature. So we have created things on Earth that can be seen thousands of light years away from a different planet. So if there is anything out there, who knows, there might be because the universe is so big, they will see this flash of light. They will see radio emissions. They will see the fact that we are destroying this beautiful planet that we have. And that's why we call it the age of the Anthropocene. It's basically the time where humans had had the most impact over the world, and as much as an asteroid or the Ice Age. And absolutely terrifying what humans have done in the last 200 years. And it's not just the environment, because the environment is completely enclosed with several relationships with animals, and we are animals as well. One of the examples of the Anthropocene is how we have made a lot of animals extinct in the last 4,000, 5,000 years. One of them is the woolly mammoth. We have hunted an entire species to extinction. Just let that sink in for a while. We have hunted an entire living organism to extinction. Not, it wasn't Mother Nature, it wasn't a disease, it was us. So that's the age of the Anthropocene, and that's what we are dealing with right now. Uh, Moving on, it's not just animals, but the fact that we are also spreading pollution, coal, oil, and natural gas. And trust me when I say this, if we wanted, we would have created an alternative fuel, alternative renewable energy, much more cleaner energy if we wanted to. But we don't do that. Coal is readily available, right? And it's easier to get to, but the consequences that coal has on humanity, on the globe, on us as a species is terrifying. And I'm going to talk about these things, these coal, oil, natural gas, and the impact that it has on the world and especially on our fragile bodies. So let's move on. Why should we care about the Anthropocene? Because it affects all of us. And as Dr. Philippe has mentioned that, when we talk about climate change, we have to include Bangladesh as well, because we have to understand that Bangladesh is a low-lying country, which is fraught with climate disasters. We have floods, droughts, salinity issues. We have, as Nurulamin sir mentioned, a lot of riverline erosions. I was in Rangpur, Dinajpur a couple of years ago, and I saw that there were even people that have shared experiences of moving more than 50 times in their lifetime. 50 times. That is more than the years that they have ever lived. So imagine per year they have to move at least 2 or 3 times. It is shocking and baffling that whatever is happening in the global elite on the West is absolutely impacting us in every way possible. And I've seen many comments on the issue of water, right? The issue of water, because with the increasing salinity, with the increasing arsenic and other mercury and other materials in the water, it becomes increasingly difficult to become to get drinking water. The earth, of course, has a lot of water. There's more water on earth than landmass, but we have to remember that not a lot of it is drinking water. So that is an issue that Bangladesh is also facing because of climate change and the age of humankind. Then we have issues such as land becoming dry. I'm sure Professor Nurul Amin and other people that have lived for a while, and God bless them that they have seen how erratic climate change has become. They have seen how during winter it feels like summer, and during summer it feels like autumn and spring. So the entire weather systems are changing because of our of our doing as well. And of course some scientists will argue that this is a natural cycle, but I would not argue that. I would argue that for the most part it is our doing, and not not the mother nature, not the global cycle of weather. No, it is the carbon emissions, it is the amount of fossil fuels that we are burning that is heating up the earth, that is causing these issues. um, and the interesting thing is, I'm going to talk about this in a little bit more detail in the next part of my talk, is that the solution to this, as Nurulaman has very, very nicely mentioned, is not technology. We don't have to spend billions of dollars or millions of dollars on on climate action. We can use indigenous knowledge. When I was in Malaysia and Singapore, I saw that their houses were built a little bit, it was a little, it was at a certain height. It was not exactly on the ground, right? It was raised. So why is this? Because of two things. Funny enough, because one of them are tigers, and the other one, wild animals, and the other one is basically floods. So this basic raising has helped save a lot of lives. And at the same time, we see that because of areas that were affected by salinity, These people, they need to survive. They need to get livelihoods intact, right? So do you know what they do? They basically harvest crabs. Crabs that can survive in high saline conditions. So what they do is they create these farms where they raise these crabs, and once they're adult enough to be eaten, unfortunately by us, I feel bad for them, they are exported or shipped to Dhaka, where they are sold for a very decent price to restaurants and other food places. And so this is their livelihood. So it doesn't take much to raise these things. So you don't have to spend billions and millions of dollars. Yes, sometimes you need some investments to do it, right? Some investments to do it. For example, there are machines that can separate saline from water and make it non-salty, as if the term is correct. Sorry, Aisha, I think my video is off. I think because I'm sharing my screen, so unfortunately, I will turn on my video when the sharing is done. So sorry for that if you can't see my face. And the most interesting, and I think my most favorite solution to the issue is these floating farms, as they call it, right? These ponds where they grow a lot of vegetables, they mix them with fertilizer, they use a lot of natural fertilizers like banana leaves, rotten leaves of pineapples to use fertilizer. They don't have to buy expensive imported fertilizer to actually solve this climate crisis, because we know that we are a climate flood prone area. Something as simple as this can really increase economic and other output. So yeah, aquaponics. As thank you very much, Kawi, for mentioning that. So it's a very simple solution to a hugely underestimated issue, right? So that's part one. Let's go to the next part, right? So we have all these indigenous natural knowledges, and this is a very interesting comic that I will show you. You will hear from the global elite, from people living in New York, from people, left-wing activists, centrist, right-wing, all of these activists, they talk about humans as if we are the parasites, that we are the virus. And for sure, for the longest period of time, I believed this was the case. I believed that we people, as George Carlin once said, that we are essentially a disease that the earth would just shake off. Like we are like lice. We are like bed bugs on the beautiful and bountiful land of Mother Nature. But then I started to think about it, and I was so wrong to think that we are the viruses. Sure, we, the elite, we definitely are the virus, but not the indigenous people. Not really, no, because we are the ones, the global elite, we are the ones using the most carbon emissions. We are the one using cars to get to a place where we can use a bike. We are the ones using mobiles and TVs and computers that generate God knows how much levels of energy. But on the other hand, indigenous people, they're not using these technologies. 80% of the world's remaining biodiversity is in indigenous lands, and that is a huge statistic, right? And these are the people that look after the animals and the forests and all that, right? And exactly, corporations as well. We cannot overstate the damage that corporations have done, especially MNCs and TNCs. I'm not going to take names, but sometimes we would like to take off the focus. For example, let's say the other, like Gats Lagan Poribesh Bachan. Say plant tree, save the planet. This was the slogan for the longest period of time. And let me tell you this, we don't even get 60% of the oxygen from trees. Trees are extremely important. We must plant them, yes. But only by planting trees we cannot save the earth, right? Because 60% of the earth's oxygen really comes from the oceans, from the moss and the algae, right? Uh, Plants are different. We need to plant them for other things, for the shade, for balancing them out from storms and floods. But that cannot be the only solution. Only planting trees and being done does not mean that you are done saving the planet. That is an idea that we really have to get out of our heads, right? So on the note of Dr. Philip, he has mentioned something extremely important and extremely beneficial. The point is that, you know, all these colonizers from Europe, from the West, they always try to diminish, you know, try to downplay indigenous knowledge, like the Inuits that live in the Arctic. These people have been living here for a very, very, very long time. It's like if your house, if your neighborhood is in Mirpur, for example, you know where everything is. You know your nearest shop. You know where it's dangerous. You know where to get the best food. You know every nook and cranny of your neighborhood. These Inuits, they have been living here for the last thousands and thousands of years. And scientific knowledge, more important knowledge than science, have been passed on to the Inuits by their grandmothers and their grandfathers for the last 10,000 plus years. So they really know the area inside out. I'm talking Arctic, Canada, Finland, right? Sweden, right? Both the Sami people and the Inuit people, right? They do have a lot of knowledge that scientists, especially unfortunately, Western scientists, they have been trying to downplay all these indigenous knowledge for a very long time, right? Very small things like, behavior of animals. If you see ants bringing down their eggs and hiding them, you know there's going to be a storm. If you can see birds flying from one area to the other area, you know there's going to be a tornado, right? So they can say, they can look at the stars, and it is, they can measure it with pinpoint accuracy. Sometimes, even back in the day when climate change wasn't a big deal, they could even predict weather for 12 months. No scientific knowledge, no instruments could measure these events happening so far off in the future with such painstaking accuracy. So it really does tell you that indigenous knowledge is the front line, is at the front line of essentially solving this climate crisis. We really have no other option, right? And when I talk about the global elite, when I talk about the global elite, we are always pointing blame to China. We're always pointing blame to the United States. Every country is pointing blame on the other country to reduce carbon emissions. Now, this is a very interesting statistic that I've pulled up here. For global emissions in 2017, very recently, Asia actually had the most emissions, 53%, and includes China with around 20% or something like that. That's almost half, right? With South Africa and other countries, they are barely at 8%. But then let's turn this on its head. Let's look at global emissions historically, and then it makes more sense. European Union and the United States together did more damage to the world than any country has done damage for the last for forever. So it is insane to see that statistics can be disguised. You really have to see the bigger picture. Climate change is a big issue, it's a long-term issue, so we really have to see the long-term statistics, right? Sure, of course, the short-term statistics will help us, right, in curbing carbon emissions in countries like China. But then it is, as Nur Lamin sir and Dr. Philip said, it is, we need teamwork. We need to collaborate, or else we will fail. Um, and this is, I'm almost at my end. I'll take just 10 more minutes because we need some time for discussion. I don't know how many of you guys have an AC, but it is crazy that, everywhere I look, I see an AC shop. Dhanmundi's মধ্যে, inside Dhanmundi itself, every half a kilometer there is a shop of Samsung, Whirlpool, Konka, and all that. Because we do live in a consumerist culture where it becomes absolutely necessary to buy these things. For me personally, could I live without an AC? No, I live in the hottest room in my house. I would have died without an AC, but the damage that this does is as unprecedented. ঠিক আছে? So let's make, this is the first time I think someone has done this in the context of Bangladesh. I sat down with my friend who is an engineer, right? I don't know if Shazid is here or if you can hear me. He is an engineer, and we sort of calculated the um, the energy consumption that I use in my own room, not my house, but me personally in my own room. And this is my room. I'm sorry, it is a man cave, but I tried to make it as nice as possible for for a photo shoot. And then I calculated my personal output, and it baffled me. It shocked me to the core. I was terrified. Um, I calculated that just in my own room, I use about 13,000 watts every single day. 13,000 watts. That includes my PC, that includes my monitor, my TV, my AC, my mobile. But the real culprit here is the AC. The AC itself, if I turn it on for at least 3 hours, it spends about 10,500 watts of energy. That is just baffling to me. And I, this guy is so nice. My student, he even calculated if we had a village and if every house in every village had a light bulb that they could light up their house, how many households could be lit up with the energy I personally use in my own room? And the results would shock you. I know I sound like a broken record. I know I sound like clickbait, but this is something that most people haven't calculated. You can light around 108 houses for 12 hours a day, 162 houses for 8 hours a day, and light 216 houses for 6 hours a day. 6 hours a day at nighttime is more than enough. So you multiply 216 with 4 members per family. We are talking almost about 1,000 people. I am generally a parasite here. I am the parasite. I am the virus because essentially I am using up the energy that 1,000 other people could have used. It's not just about capacity. This is about measuring carbon footprint to the core. So, and we calculated by using a 10-watt light bulb that if every house had a 10-watt light bulb, what this consumption would have looked like. And these are the results. And let me tell you this was shocking for me as well. And of course, we have to blame the corporations as well. We have to blame the other people for the other corporations to sort of minimize. When we talk about coal, we know that coal is responsible for deaths of over 1 to 2 million people a year, and this is not just from accidents. When I was in Ghana, when I was looking at gold mining, 5 people there died in front of my own eyes by electrocution, by inhaling too much, acidic air. And it's very surprising that I'm still alive because I went to these mines where there was heat and mercury and sulfur and cyanide, and I don't know how it impacted me, but these people, these are their livelihoods. So when these people do these things, it hurts them in the long run. 2 million deaths a year, and you combine that with the last 200 years, and the results, again, they are baffling, right? And the problem with me is blaming countries like Africa, blaming countries like Nigeria for using energy, and for the Western countries to impose renewable energy to these countries. To me, that is hypocrisy because only 3% of Nigerians own an aircon. 3%. I would say the number is more than 40% in Dhaka, maybe 80% if I'm not mistaken, right? Africa needs to grow as a continent, but we cannot restrict funding to them to only renewable energy. They, unfortunately, like the rest of the world, need carbon to develop. Once they go through that phase, 15, 20 years of using carbon, they can then only move on to renewable energy. So this hypocrisy from the rich countries, where we're blaming African countries to, reduce their carbon footprint is absolute hypocrisy. We need to focus on the countries that are not doing the most damage, and we need to focus on the countries that are, with countries like the United States. And we need to also hold the companies accountable for this. And personal accountability, of course, is as important, but we all have to do it together, right? I'm almost done. Last 5 minutes. We are scared. So people could ask, what is the alternative, Mastoon? What is the alternative? I'm sure there are a lot of alternatives. One of them is, of course, renewable energy and all that. Nuclear energy, and I might be hung for this, but every single scientist today that is alive will always tell you that nuclear energy is safe. I'm not talking about Rumpel. I do not know Rumpel, how safe it is, if there are security protocols, how old the machinery are, if the safety protocols are working. But all the nuclear energies that Germany, Netherlands, and the rest of the European countries using, they do not have much radioactive waste. They are more efficient. They can use the current waste as fuel, and they do not need that much safety systems, right? And imagine just a single atom when split can power up an entire city, right? And with that, I'm going to conclude my talk. Jay, where are we going to go? What are we going to do, right? There is no planet B. We can't just ship off to Mars like Elon Musk says, right? And this is not to say I do not believe in space technology. I 100% firmly believe that we should invest in space. The fact that all of these technologies like GPS, MRI, X-rays, microwaves, if you do something in space, for every dollar spent in space, it's like $100 plus profit comes to Earth. That's how proficient, that's how profitable spacefaring is. If you can grow a plant on Mars, you can grow it anywhere on Earth. Space really makes us expand on what is necessary to do and what is not. So let's remind ourselves on that. And if you think about people complaining about the NASA budget, this chart will tell you the sad situation of NASA right now. Back in the 60s, when Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong, they would set their foot on the moon, the space programs cost about 5% of the federal budget. Now it is less than 1%. If the United States of America, if all these other Western countries stopped spending their money on weapons and wars and nuclear arms, right, and they spent it on space, I think we would have been a way more advanced technology. And this is absolutely sad. I think spending money on war is as bad as the burning down of the Library of Alexandria. That's how behind we are. Some people, scientists, would even say we are 50 years behind because we did not invest in climate action and in space at the same time, right? So what can we do? So I'm going to talk about some solutions. What can we do personally? Because unfortunately, corporations won't listen to us. And as Nurulamin sir said, we need corporations to listen. There needs to be an initiative from corporations. But unfortunately, for now, we have to stick with the personal initiatives. We can, for example, my mother always bothers me about this. We can turn off the lights when we don't use it. We can plant rooftop trees, right? Because that is a great solution. Trees on the rooftop in some places like Dhaka South, they actually give some tax deduction. I'm not sure if this is true, but my father just told me about this a couple of hours ago. And I was like, that's brilliant. I'm not sure if that's being enforced, but that's amazing. If you could grow a garden on your rooftop, it really does cool down the temperature a lot. Solar energy on the rooftop. Imagine how many floors that can power, right? Reusable bags, reusable water bottles, and just stop using plastic. Let's use paper. Let's use jute. We have so many alternatives, and that, if combined, if all the young people and all the old people and everyone in this nation did this together, I think this world would have been a better place. So let's hope for the best. I do not expect anything to change. I do not expect anything to change very, but we can keep hope. We have to act. We cannot just be slacktivists. I like this word, slacktivist. It's an activist that slacks around, just talks about change, but never does it themselves. We do not deserve this hypocrisy.
I think Masoon sir is facing some network issues. I think we'll just wait for a couple of seconds. But meanwhile, I'll encourage everyone to please leave their questions and any thoughts that we have. Okay, so Masnoon sir said that he's actually done with what he was saying. So I would actually like to invite Mr. David Blockstein. He is actually one of the project directors at Solve Climate by 2030. He is present in the session at the moment. So just before we get into the discussion, Mr. David, if you would like to add anything.
Yeah, well, thank you very much, Aisha. And it's unfortunately, I didn't get to hear everything. I heard on the second half of the professor and all of Masnoon's, but it's really exciting to just to give a little context here, and you probably heard this at the beginning, but this is one of the first of the more than 100 webinars on climate solutions that are taking place around the world over these next 2 weeks. And it's really, I think, gratifying to hear the universality of the approaches to climate solutions. You know, it's very interesting for me to hear the professor talk about Rachel Carson, who I live in Maryland. Just a few days ago, we were hiking in the Rachel Carson Conservation Park. She lived very close to where I live when she was working for the US government, and to hear things about the NASA budget. But the solutions, you know, whether we're in Bangladesh or in Maryland or in Zimbabwe or wherever, are similar, that we need to be living more lightly on the planet. We need to be concerned about our fellow human beings and providing ways that we can help each other out. And we need to be working together to develop solutions. And so for me, it's very exciting to hear how people in Bangladesh, and I know this is the first of, I think, 7 webinars, are working together and to creating solutions that are both locally relevant and also globally relevant. So I thank you all for your leadership.
Thank you so much, Mr. David. We're so happy to have you here. Thanks for joining today. So we'll just get into the discussion session a little bit. There are some questions and thoughts in the chat. So just to read out the most recent one that we have: how beneficial would the production and use of nuclear energy be in the long run, since the primary materials of the energy production are limited resources like uranium? So Masnoon sir, Nurul Ramin sir, Philip Foray sir, or Mr. David, if any of you would like to attend this question, please go ahead.
Is it okay if I add to that? So I actually teach this extensively in my class. 2 things that are going on right now. We have this fear of nuclear energy, and it has been encapsulated for 2 events that have happened in history. Actually, Fukuyama, I forgot the name. Please correct me if I'm wrong. And the other is Chernobyl in 1980. Fukushima, and in 1986 in Chernobyl, Ukraine, right? Since then, nuclear energy has improved 1,000-fold. Trust me when I say this, right? Not only that, and sure, yeah, people are actually scared about the waste. That is an issue, absolutely. But it's sort of like a win-lose situation where, sure, you can keep these waste underneath the earth. It won't affect anything. It won't affect water, versus using coal and 2 million people dying every day. So which one would you choose? It's actually as easy as that. But thirdly, at the same time, most generation 4 nuclear reactors, right? How do nuclear reactors work? You're just splitting out atoms and you're using that energy on turbines and other water-based technologies. Essentially, what is happening right now is that we have reduced the waste that these nuclear reactors get by a lot, well, by a lot, almost 2/3. And at the same time, we can also reuse those waste for something else. So the waste issue is now very minimal. It wasn't the fact, well, like it was back in 1986 when, you have this chunk of radioactive matter in the basement of Chernobyl called the elephant's foot. And it is so radioactive. These radioactive particles hit you like bullets. You can instantly get cancer just by standing there. You can't even take a picture of it because it burns away the digital film and everything else. So I would say, sure, we can invest in nuclear energy, but let's not think too far. Let's just do with renewables. We're good with that, right? Let's start slow, and then when the demand is there, we can think big. For now, let's focus on indigenous knowledge. Like I've seen some countries in Africa where they have these water bottles. They have these water bottles with some sodium, water, some sodium mixture, and they put it on the top of their roofs. And during daytime, it actually gives a lot of light, almost equal to 5 watts of an energy saving light. That is amazing. It literally takes less than a cent to make that happen, right? So I think we should focus on that than just talking people about the advantages and disadvantages of nuclear energy, which unfortunately we have to, right? So yeah, there's that. So that's from me. If anyone else would like to add. Or we can go to the next question if Aisha wants to.
Sure, sir. We actually do have another question that was mentioned in the chat. So it was actually addressed to Professor Amin. So the person said, Professor Amin, agreeing to what you said about the 3 Rs, conservation and less consumption, don't you think the government and stakeholders should also look for ways to reduce the production of residuals? Because this might be a bigger step to reduce pollution in the first place. So, Nur Amin,
Yes.
sir, if
Yeah, here is something doable. You see, residual reduction, the technology allows this. There are alternate technologies. Some technologies generate more residuals per unit of output, and some technologies which we will call more residual intensive technology and residual generating technology. So this knowledge, this technology are available already. Problem in Bangladesh is our entrepreneurs are not all that knowledgeable of this alternative technologies that are available. In fact, that's why we need to organize maybe study trip, maybe to Europe, or the European coming to Bangladesh to demonstrate the availability of these alternative technologies. And at least on these technologies, selling it should not be profiteering. This should be really like the developed countries donating for the environmental protection and management. There have been models like the debt nature swapping, yeah, that allowed that. All these things did not come automatically. People struggled or launched movement, and then because this paying back the debts in dollar, so many developing countries are to. Then I gave this example of shrimp culture or tanneries. Germany would not allow any tanneries. You see the irony here. Even my environmental economics textbook says that the new comparative cost advantage for the developing countries, let's say I add like Bangladesh, no more it is only cheap labor, but it is higher tolerance of environmental damage. I'm not saying that author of that book really is there are many writing about the choice, what do you call the tragedy of choice. Um, so, but the fact is that the developing countries have become somewhat the pollution heavens. But anyway, the main point here is that yes, these technologies are available, and this should be the international order can do a lot here, at least for this, for the reason of as if it is too expensive, so our entrepreneurs cannot afford this. That should not be a barrier, because we are sharing the same planet. And there are a lot of programs in where the developed countries are helping out country like Bangladesh. There has been out of Kyoto Protocol, there have been examples of reducing greenhouse gas emissions in Bangladesh. The Netherlands adopted project in Bangladesh, and the Netherlands quota of reducing the greenhouse emissions, they could credit that by taking up a project here in Bangladesh. So there are these good examples, and I think thank you for bringing up this. Some solutions not so easy, but some available solutions if we do not adapt, so that it will be a pity. So it is possible, it is doable.
Thank you so much, sir. There's actually a follow-up question in the chat as well. The person says, what about the source of the majority of our oxygen, sir? The sea plants and the oceans. They are polluted extensively and authorities are not really able to cope up with it. It's terrifying. Conversely, Bhutan is doing great in terms of sustaining alternatives and enough forests, despite having tourism as one of the main earning sectors. Where are they actually making the difference, and we or every other nation from Asia isn't making? So yes, if you would please.
Do you want me to answer the question? I think they asked me directly, right?
Yeah.
Or
it wasn't really addressed. Okay. Not sure.
does Philip, sir, do you want to add something to, or do you want me to start answering that question? I think your ear is muted.
Please go ahead.
Okay. So a couple of things that I want to say. Yes, definitely. We do come from the ocean. We are ocean people, right? If you're interested to know about this, look up the aquatic hypothesis of humanity. It's very interesting. But the point being here is that oxygen, definitely a lot of it comes from the oceans, especially when we talk about amoeba and moss. But look at what we're doing to the coral reef. A large majority of the world's coral reef are dying because we are spilling oil and other chemicals into the ocean, right? So we really have to stop. This is humans have not done much damage personally to the ocean. It's actually the corporations. So unless we hold these corporations accountable, there's no way we can fix what's going on in the ocean, because we're talking about companies like BP, Shell, that make trillions and trillions of dollars of profit from these oil rigs that they put in the middle of nowhere in these big oceans, right? And sometimes they exceed their territory. For example, I don't know if you guys know the history of Iran, where BP and Shell, they put up a lot of oil rigs in Iran itself, right? But essentially damaging the infrastructure. And of course, they did, when Iran, the reason why they had a revolution and all that is because they wanted to essentially privatize that oil, right? It's all about resources. When you talk about Bhutan, Bhutan did a couple of things very well. One is planting millions of trees, so they have negative carbon emissions. Secondly, if you've gone to Bhutan, you'll see that there are no cars, very few cars, right? Even in the Netherlands, I'm sure Philip can vouch for this. Even in the Netherlands, they put speed limit. They put a box, right, in the car where the car cannot exceed a certain speed, and it cannot produce so much carbon emissions. So the reason why Bhutan is doing so well with negative carbon emissions is that because they've done these two things. They have made climate a responsibility, not for the king itself, but also people, right? So that's why Bhutan is doing so well. With a population of 160 million, I'm not sure how it will do that in Bangladesh. But I know some countries like Brazil and Argentina, only certain cars can come out on certain days of the week, you know? Depending on your license plate number, you can only be allowed to take out your car on certain parts of the day. I'm not sure if we can do that here. The only thing we can do is maybe get rid of these crime syndicates, of gang syndicates of buses, and get proper public transportation, government owned public transportation going. That's the only way I see this happening in Dhaka. I don't know if anyone would like to add um, anything else to this.
Just constructing footpath can also do a lot. I think
Yep.
the
Yep.
pedestrian ways, yeah, we have lost whatever we had.
Yep.
Every
Yep.
time I have gone to Japan in recent years, I see the roadway spaces are being shrunk, but the footpath, pedestrian ways are expanding. We are moving in the opposite direction. So it's very unfortunate a country is so, I don't know, somebody may not like saying it poor, but in such a stage of development that we are losing our footpath. So footpath with the shade. Some people say hot and humid country for walking is not so possible, but even that can be also taken care of by plantation, by shades. In fact, these examples are there. Just look at it is the colonial powers established Ramna Green. We we imitate so many things, but we could not even imitate them. Kuala Lumpur also, what the British built there. Like we have not been able to adapt the good things. That's very sad.
Sure. Something to add before I think we can let Dr. Philippe talk about, maybe add a little bit of contribution to this, is the fact that Salwa has asked a very interesting question. How do we hold corporations accountable? Sometimes in globalization studies, we see how corporations essentially become slightly more powerful than nations themselves. They work in this symbiotic, very toxic relationship where, like, look at Nestle. Nestle really does steal water from a lot of African countries. And it's really sad that they do that, right? And so you'll see a lot of memes of farmers with a gun protecting their land. They have every right to do that. I would have done the same, right? The only way to fight corporations is, I don't know how much government can intervene into this, but it should be a people's. I don't know if you guys have heard of the Bhopal disaster. I think Nurul Amin sir has heard of the Bhopal disaster. Absolutely terrifying. I think it was 100 times worse than Chernobyl. The Bhopal was a city where they had a gas plant, and the gas leaked and essentially suffocated and killed thousands of people. The estimates go from 70,000 to 150,000, right? What happened to the corporation? Nothing, right? Because for these people to just give a small fine and go away, that's it. And my grandfather used to say something very interesting, that if a crime has a fine, that crime only applies to the rich people, because the rich people they give the fine and get away with it, but the poor people, they can't give the fine and they will be jailed. So it really tells you the nature of consumerism and capitalism. So I don't know if Philip or Nurul Amin sir would like to add to how do we really, because it's something that I've been racking my brains over on how to do it really. I don't know. I don't really see a proper solution to this. So.
Maybe I should reply. And the answer is easy. You speak to bankers, you speak to investors, you invite them to your projects. What I've realized during the meetings I've had with leaders of the finance and insurance industries is that they are short of ideas. They are short of concepts. They are asking for innovation, for new areas where they can invest. Whereas we have projects, but very often we don't have. We have projects, but very often we don't have the funding we need. The UN Agenda 2030 is a long list of such projects that have not been funded. There is an agreement about the urgency, about the need to work on this program, and nonetheless, we forgot to get involved investors and bankers. This community has been, in one way, marginalized in the sense that they are no longer active players in our economy. There is now a complete diverse between finance and economy. And I would just like to give one example of the absurdity of our system. Yesterday, I read an article about the Museum of Modern Art in Tehran, Iran. The collections were acquired a few months before the fall of the Shah. And at the time, modern art was cheap. For $100 million, you could get a nice collection for your museum. Today, this collection, the same collection, is valued at $3 billion. The difference is 1 to 30 between 1977 and 2021. For the people of Iran, this is not a good placement. They don't do anything with the money. It would have been much wiser to invest this money in research and education, because what we do at our humble level is to sail the future and prepare leaders of the next generation. And for that, obviously, we need support. And that support in our capitalist system can come only from capitalist corporations. And this is why we need to work together with these giants. We do that at BRACU University, by the way. One of our projects is with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, right? This is about inclusion and finance. That will be part of the answer. The other part of the answer would be to say, well, forget it.
I think Philippe is disconnected.
If I can make a point.
Sure, sir. Go ahead,
Yeah.
sir, because I think Philippe is
Let's see
disconnected.
if Philippe is back or not yet.
No,
Yeah,
sir.
I just want to make this point that the governments have given in to the corporate culture, probably in most countries, but in Bangladesh, so much. Let me give the example of that we all know, our young boys and girls know it very well. There have been, just until very recently, everybody was going, everybody is not the right word, most graduating students, I mean class 12 ending university entry to BBA, business school. There is two very important fields are starving for the personnel necessary not from the market demand point of view, but actual societal need wise. One is urban planning, physical planning field, another is environmental science. The students would not come to these very important disciplines because there is no obvious job market or jobs for this. Yeah, so students should go to BBA, now more and more to CSC. And this has been, so this commodification of education and serving the private capital owners, the capitalists. So their need, because they are the job givers, they would not invest $1 for educating our students. They get ready-made graduates. Their parents, their hard-earned money, some really educate their children with a lot of sacrifice, and then they get ready-made graduates for the purpose they want to make use of them. But the country needs more urban planners, physical planners. Your country needs environmental scientists, environmental managers, but we don't have enough coming to this. So those fields which serve the public sector kind of thing, for example, the environmental protection agency staffing or physical planning, and it should not be only limited to a city like Dhaka or mega city. It should be even settlement planning should be for Bangladesh throughout the land. If not a village, every upazila should have a physical planner, settlement planning for settlement planning. Every village, not every upazila should have, sub-district should have an environmental manager, environmental scientist. If government simply makes this as a requirement, then you will see the demand for this education will expand. Every factory should be required to have an environmental scientist or an environmental manager. But unfortunately, this is not happening. We have tried to organize things and have taken this to the attention to the ministerial level people, particularly in charge of the environment. But they are so preoccupied with other priorities that they still, attention is not coming. I mentioned this constitutional amendment to make it follow up things for that should have been things like that, and that would expand the education in urban or physical planning, settlement planning, and then also in environmental science, in environmental management. So the one problem has become in the world today, in fact, the classical economists have said it well, this problem is not also simply the private ownership of the means of production, yeah, or allowing this market system. Problem is when the capitalists take over, like the Trumpists take over the power, yeah, like in Bangladesh also, has become more or less the case. Like government is controlled by the rich people, yeah, and the powerful people. Then the societal benefits, what need to be done, that cannot occur. So free marketeers, the great minds, economists, they have, it seems that they could foresee this, that because those like Marx would criticize the capitalist system, so they respond to that, that understand the problem is not free market in itself or private ownership of the means of production. What should be guarded against the regulatory system, public policy making. This is not taken over by the risk, then we are lost to the worst situation.
Thank you so much, Mr. Amin. We actually have two questions. I'll just read the most recent one now. So it took so much effort to hold the company DuPont accountable with the lawsuits that they faced in 2001, when the residents of the Ohio River Valley started to get affected due to the PFOA/C8 poisoning in their water supply. Now DuPont, although finally ditched C8, but did it recently in 2015, are still to blame for continuing production of Teflon. Will lawsuits be enough if we really want to hold these private companies accountable? What can or should governments do? If Mr.
I am familiar with not that much, but some discussion on this in the literature, that the onus or the responsibility, if it is to the damaging party, then it will become difficult to get the damaging party to be prosecuted. Yeah, because the onus should not be only to the damaging party. There should be an intermediary authority, maybe government, on behalf of the citizens. Otherwise, in fact, it is already a cautionary note is there that it may not work, that what is expected, that when losses or damage take place and the party who is affected. In fact, very great, clever mind economist would say that if the damaging party should rather compensate those who have causing the damage, because otherwise the damaging party may exaggerate the damage. But that's why maybe they want kind of a bargaining or negotiation to come to an optimal outcome of that situation. But I guess in most countries, the laws and regulations are as it is now, that it is to the individuals who are affected who are to do this, or who are to prosecute. But when it is takeover by, I don't know, maybe David would know it better, that when it is government is, I remember that when BP's that oil tanker sinking, then it was during the Obama administration. So to my understanding that it was probably the government who took the initiative. So the compensation could be to a great extent, the BP had to pay for that. But if individual citizens to take actions, and then it is not easy.
Thank you so much, Nurul Sir. I think that's the last question I'll take, because unfortunately our Zoom meeting will close in about 2-3 minutes.
Sure.
So I thank you very much, Nurul Sir. And I think Dr. Philippe, unfortunately, I think he was having technical issues. So I would invite Aisha to close the session.
Thank you so much, everyone, for coming to the BRAC University version of our climate dialogues in Bangladesh. Thank you so much for taking part in our discussion as well. Please keep an eye on our Facebook event, because we do have a lot of other versions of this webinar coming up soon from universities like North-South, IUB, and so on. And we'll be posting the registration details and the details of those events soon. We look forward to seeing you there, and we hope you have a good day. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you, guys.
Thank
you, Aisha, Tanvir. Thank you, Nurul
for all
Sir.
the work. Tanvir has been doing work from behind since. You don't see him. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Aisha and Tanvir both, actually. Thank you, David. Thank you, David. I'll see you soon.
Yes,
Hope you had a great breakfast. We were saying how nice it was that you had breakfast while participating. Thank you, David. Thank you, Nurul Sir. I'll see you. Have a good night.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Have a good
all.
morning.
I see some of my students also have joined. That's great.
Yes. Thank you, guys. Take care.
Great work.